When you advocate for schools and children, it helps to know how schools are funded. So how are schools funded in North Carolina? North Carolina schools are funded by 3 major sources. The majority, about 65% of school funding, comes from the North Carolina General Assembly. 24% comes from local counties. 11% comes from the federal government. The feds play a small but critical role in our schools. First, they're responsible for funding school nutrition programs like free and reduced lunch and breakfast. Next, they provide the funding for Title I schools, or schools that have a high percentage of kids living in poverty. Finally, under IDEA, or the Individuals with Disability Education Act, the feds provide funding and resources to students with disabilities. Our county commissioners, by state law, are responsible for school facilities, including building new schools. They primarily use property taxes as a revenue source. The General Assembly allocates money for teachers and staff, materials like textbooks, and everything that goes into operating a school. They use income tax and corporate tax as primary revenue sources. The state of North Carolina is responsible for providing a sound basic education for every child. So what about my municipal, town, or city? What is their role? They provide zoning guidance for building schools, but they do not provide funding for public schools in North Carolina. So what about my school board? It may surprise you to learn that school boards do not have taxing authority. The county commissioners set tax rates and decide whether or not to allocate the budget request from the school board. So what happens when the state fails to fund our schools? When the state fails to fund our schools, the counties pick up the slack. That generally means our property taxes go up. Some counties can raise enough revenue through property taxes to make state cuts less painful, while other counties can't begin to make up the difference. This causes deep inequities in our schools. Every child has the right to a sound basic education under the state constitution. So now you know the basics of North Carolina school funding. It's time to advocate for equitable schools in North Carolina.